Good morning, guys. Once again, it is I, the chairman, and bring you a review of the latest subscriber package from Vinegar Syndrome for the month of February. So there wasn't as much this month as before, and so what they did send was this is Sister Sister, and this is a film with Eric Stoltz, um, Jennifer Jason Leigh, and Judith Ivey, and it's directed by Bill Condon. So it's actually got a pretty good pedigree here. And basically, the story's about a Charlotte, and she has a sister Lucy, and they live in a secluded country mansion. And then on a cold rainy night, there's a guy called Matt, who is played by Eric Stoltz, comes over and starts taking a fancy to Lucy. Violence ensues. All sorts of dark and murderous secrets that were buried in they're buried deep in the past are going to be unearthed. So it's apparently got a bit of a gothic atmosphere, touches of magical realism, violent murder. Seems pretty interesting. I never heard of it actually. I think it came out in 1987, and this is a 2K restoration. So from the 35mm inner positive. So that's the slipcover. And this is the cover, and then inside you have the the theater poster, or the key art as they say, and then inside there is a little booklet. There's an article written about it. Just a few pictures. So yeah, this one definitely seems interesting. Like I said before, I'm not necessarily going to keep all of my Vinegar Syndromes. And the next film in the list is probably one that I won't keep, which is Beware Children at Play. Just doesn't really sound very interesting to me at all. So I'm not even going to open it. So this is the front. Essentially, it's about Glenn and his father. They go in the woods. Dad gets caught in a bear trap. They're out in the middle of nowhere. So Glenn has to eat his dad. So there's cannibalism involved. It's just a lot of, typical slasher, gory horror stuff. Doesn't seem too interesting to me. It's a 35mm original camera restoration in 2K. Got commentary, got an extended making of, a couple interviews. Really no one involved in this film is of any renown whatsoever. The director is Mick Cribbin. It's his only directorial effort. So yeah, probably one I'll definitely pass up on. And then what they also came out with was Drop Dead Fred, which had a little bit of controversy because this was supposed to have been released by Severin, and somehow, for whatever reason, they lost it, and now it is in Vinegar Syndrome's hands. And so they probably just took all the elements that had already been done from the Severin, for the Severin release, and just took it. So this is a story of Elizabeth, and she's played by Phoebe Cates. Her husband just dumped her. Her car got stolen. She's got an overbearing mom. Her job's a mess. So she kind of retreats back to her childhood, comfort. And her childhood imaginary friend is Drop Dead Fred, who was always her companion. But he actually comes to real life, and he's played by Rick Mayall. And so this film was directed by Ata de Jong, and I guess it's kind of an interesting family film, which isn't really a family film because it's kind of crazy. But it has Marsha Mason, it has Tim Matheson, and Carrie Fisher, of all people, in this. So it has a pretty interesting cast. And this is a 2K restoration from the 35mm inner positive. So yeah, looking forward to checking out Drop Dead Fred. So as part of their Valentine's Day sales, they had a couple things that were put out. They re-released Madman in 4K. And so this is the back of Madman. This Madman came out in 1981, and it's kind of your typical campfire story tale come to life. You have a story about Madman Mars. He's a hulking brute who murdered his entire family decades earlier, including summoned from the dead by calling his name, so kind of like Candyman. And then so Richie and his summer camp counselors, they're at summer camp. Madman Mars comes back, starts killing people up. Yeah, so it's directed by Joji Anon, and it stars Galen Ross, who was from Dawn of the Dead. And so that's what we have on the inside. And so that's Madman. And also because it's Valentine's Day and Vinegar Syndrome sells movies for lovers, so they always have to put out some adult fare. And this is one of their more recent releases. This is one of their new releases. A double feature starring Marilyn Jess. Marilyn Jess, a famous French porn actress. And she's probably most famous in the United States for having starred alongside Tracy Lords in the Tracy Lords legal film Tracy I Love You, which is her comeback after having left the United States because she had starred in adult films underage. So then she came back, she did this whole thing, and Marilyn Jess was one of her, I guess, co-stars, if you will. But so this is from in I guess a partner label of Vinegar Syndrome called Pulse, and they put out French films, not just French films, I believe, but adult films from all other countries. And so it's released under Vinegar Syndrome's as a partner label. So if you go on their site, it's under the partner label stuff. So that is, I don't even know how to pronounce this this title. So it's basically the Marilyn Jess films. It's 2 films of hers. And then so also what we have here is interesting double feature called Phantasm, not the Phantasm with a P, directed by Don Coscarelli, but this is a Australian softcore film that kind of pushes the boundaries of softcore. It's directed by Anthony Janine, and he then went off and did Australian horror, but he decided to start off filming these kind of, I guess, softcore films to get his feet wet. And so this Phantasm comes again. And what's cool is that he got a lot of well-known both hardcore and softcore actors: Renee Bond, John Holmes, Ushi Dagard in the first one, and the second one he's got no, I'm sorry, this is the second one was directed by a different guy, Colin Eggleston, and it has Serena, Bill Margold, Cheryl Rainbow Smith. Cheryl Rainbow Smith was in a bunch of kind of exploitation-y films in the late 70s, early 80s. Massacre at Central High being one of them that I can think of. Candy Samples, and dozens more. So yeah, that's Phantasm. So you got that. And so this is from their Picorama label. So Picorama is the label that Vinegar Syndrome uses to essentially sell their porn titles. So what I did want to talk about was I had watched through a few of Vinegar Syndrome's previous films that had been released, and these were the ones that I got from the Black Friday sale. And so I watched through Flesh for Frankenstein, and this was their, I guess, their premiere release of that time, and looked pretty good for a 4K film. I mean, it's not like super great looking because, you know, it's limited by the source, but the film looked pretty good. It was very kind of campy, over the top. You got to give credit to Udo Kier for hamming the hell out of the story. He's always talking about the guy's nozzum or his nose. He wants to get the guy with a perfect nose, or he always calls it the nozzum, and he's all about creating the perfect Serbian male and female so that they can mate and then have children. And then so what's interesting is that the main twist is that he's looking for a guy, and so there's these 2 guys who are friends. They're working on his estate, and Frankenstein originally has his eyes on the one guy, but then in a case of mistaken identity, because the two of them go to a whorehouse, the other guy comes out, and then Frankenstein grabs that guy. And so throughout the entire so throughout the film, you get the impression that the one dude, the accidental guy who gets turned into his Frankenstein, is actually gay, and just has his hots for the other dude. I can't remember their names, so I just call him Dude 1 and Dude 2. So Dude 2 is a guy who you suspect is gay, but they never say it. But if you watch it now, you can kind of tell he's just he has those. It's pretty obvious what's going on. And then so later on, when he takes Dude 2 and turns him into the monster, and wants to get him to essentially get it on with a girl, he has no response. He doesn't react. And there's this hilarious scene where like where Frankenstein has the guy and the girl together, and like he tells the girl to keep kissing the guy, and he just has no response. And Frankenstein's just getting continually more and more angered and frustrated as to why is the dude not having a response, and he just thinks that someone contaminated his work, someone sabotaged him. But it's obvious that the guy is gay, But I guess back then they either couldn't say it, or Paul Morrissey just figured we would all guess that the dude is gay. But then at the end, everyone ends up killing each other. So it was all pretty gory and crazy, and I'm not sure if I would recommend this film necessarily. You kind of have to have a certain eye to watch it, and I can't say it was definitely one of my favorites, even of the films that I've seen from Vinegar Syndrome. So, but it's interesting. Yeah, it's definitely interesting, and an interesting contribution to the pantheon of Frankenstein films. Now, the other film that they released, and that I really have to give a lot of praise for, is Creature, directed by William Malone. And this is a film that it had everything going against it. It had every chance to be terrible. Low budget, no name actors except for Klaus Kinski. Just a very trope-laden setup that could have spelled disaster at many turns, but just for whatever reason actually turned out to be way better than it had any right to be. It's just one of those films that like you watch it and it says, man, this film could have sucked. It could have been terrible, but it wasn't. And that's the greatest praise you could give it, because it's, like I said, it's low budget, but despite the low budget, it all looked great. You have like the spaceship scenes were well done with fairly detailed miniatures. The special effects were well done, like the makeup effects of the creature looked pretty darn good, considering. And there was very, very few instances in the film that really took me out of it. I guess the main thing you could say was that the writing wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible. I mean, no one had great lines, but they were delivered with enough decency and a conviction on the part of the actors that it didn't come off sounding cheesy or corny or lame. Probably the portrayal of the women was probably the weakest part, but it wasn't atypical of how women were portrayed in films at the time. And actually, to give the film credit, the female characters weren't weak, quivering damsels in distress. Sure, they did scream a lot, and they kind of played this like the typical role that they would have played in like these kind of horror films, but they were competent for the most part. They didn't do overly dumb or stupid things. I mean, yeah, they did do a couple dumb things, but it wasn't egregious, or it wasn't like, oh my god, why did she do that, or like, why is she so stupid as to do that? It really wasn't. And then like and then the girl at the end, even though she screamed a lot and then she did get captured, she was still capable. She was still competent. She knew her job. She did it well. She wasn't a burden. She wasn't just like like I said, a damsel to be saved all the time, even though in the end she was saved, but it wasn't like she was just completely useless. And like the whole way that like the cast worked together fairly well. Yeah, sure, it was a ripoff of Aliens, but it was probably one of the better ripoffs I've seen. It was a pastiche of all of these things, but done better than I've seen a lot of these kind of worse pastiches. And over the last 10 years, we've gotten all sorts of these kind of films, and I doubt any of them were better than Creature. Now, is Creature amazing? Great? No, but for what it was pretty darn entertaining, and it looked great with a 4K restoration. Very well done. I mean, it could have been released in 4K. It had the potential, but I guess Vinegar Syndrome just decided that they were just going to put this one out on Blu-ray, and actually I guess kudos to them because it still looked great on Blu-ray. And like I said, you had Klaus Kinski as the only name in the cast, and even he didn't go overboard. I mean, he was playing it pretty straight, because the idea is that in the future there's American companies, there's an American company and a German company, and they both compete with each other for space exploration. And so they both land on this planet. There's this creature who's been sleeping there dormant for 200,000 years. He awakes. So the German company had gotten there first, and then that creature awakes and then kills everyone in the German crew except for Klaus Kinski. And then the Americans come and they're looking for them. So they get together. There's some conflict because they don't trust each other, but they have to work together. And so Klaus plays it straight. I mean, he could have been, like I said, way over the top, but he wasn't. So I have to give credit to the director and the writer for not hamming up the Klaus Kinski bit more than it could possibly have been. So that's my review of a Creature. If it's if you're in the mood for a mid 80s kind of alien ripoff sci-fi horror film that doesn't suck, then Creature is a good recommendation for you. So until then, I'm going to wrap this up. Just enjoy the physical media, and I will talk to you later. See you.